to the Painter Red Quarterly Slush Pile. This is a podcast where we basically demonstrate what our editorial meetings look like, sound like, I guess. We'll put up pictures so you can see what it looks like too. But mostly what we do is discuss work that's been submitted to us and we get an extra permission, let the authors know that we'd like to discuss their work online, and then we do. And that's what you're going to listen in on right now. We have a full editorial staff here today. I'll start off. My name is Kathleen Volk Miller, and I am at my home in Collingswood, and I want everyone to know that I am wearing both pants and a bra. And I am going to then sometimes I don't. I'm just being honest. I'm gonna bounce to the UAE. Hi,
Oh my Lord. All right. I'm Marion. I'm in the UAE. I am also dressed in clothes and happy that it's the end of the semester. What a wonderful, wild semester it's been. And now I'm going to bounce it over to DC, Samantha.
My name is Samantha Neugebauer, and as Marion said, I am here in DC. It is, again, muggy here, but nice, not too bad. And I'm going to pass it up to Canada.
Oh, thanks, Sam. Dagne Forrest here, just outside Ottawa. I'm definitely dressed. I'm down a tooth, so I might be a little quiet today. So with that, I'll roll it to Jason.
Hi, it's Jason Schneiderman. I'm in New York. I'm happily back after my long sojourn in England. Although now I've actually been back almost as long as I was away. It's just that when you're away, things feel longer. Like any new place like slows down time. But happily in New York, and I will send it to Lisa in North Carolina.
Yes, this is Lisa Zerkle in sunny Charlotte, North Carolina, where I am excited that it's almost summertime. And I will pass it on to Heath.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heath. I'm in Philadelphia, and it is muggy out, but I will live through it.
Persist.
Last but not least, we have our co-op, Isabel Petry. Hi, Isabel.
Hi, Isabel.
Hi, I'm in Philly as well, and I'm not minding the weather, honestly.
Well, lucky you. I hate the mugginess. Anyway, enough of that. We really have something far more important to do than discuss the weather. We are here to discuss some poems by BJ Soloy. We're very excited to do that, and we're going to jump right in. Who would like to read the first one? Pneuma.
Oh, can I have Pneuma? Can I do this one?
Absolutely.
I'm in love with the first line. I just have to take a sip of
that
water
would
to
have
get
made
this
my
right.
comment earlier.
Pneuma, put your pants back on, America. It's 4 in the morning and also 5, 3, and 2 simultaneously, you big lug. Plus there's snow. In this light, really any light, my nose looks like a tired potato got punched in its mute mouth. With any light on, I want to see other people when I look in the mirror. When I slouch in this bathroom booth where I hope to die on the shitter like an American, like one of yours. Clinton, Tennessee is any other frowsy town with a cock and balls scribbled on its playground slide and square pit bulls straining at their chains. America, I came to bed late, as always. You roll over, softly surprised, and then delighted, offering, I forgot where I was. I'm yawning, breathing just to get oxygen on this fire. Well, tonight is not the only place I am tonight. Beyond me and between me, light bulbs hiccup and burble, and a frenzied squirrel loses its map of maples and restarts. Maybe we ought to take what we've still got and laminate it in frost, and then salt, and then gold leaf over spring's pat rapture. There are things I've learned already this young, soft year I don't know what to do with. One gets a pregnancy test when in the ER for the attempt on their own life. What to name that baby? I worry I'm doing this wrong. I've got beans soaking, sharps and meds hidden, the last dank swill of our bank account miraculously transformed into boxed wine. Winter's here with its expressive eyebrows and doomed neighborhood cats under every car. You yawn, so I kiss you, and you taste better than free food, but you can't sleep, and I try to stay up reading, but layers of exhaustion, wet blankets on this piss whisper of a fire, keep accumulating. I worry you'll do it right next time. I'm still attached to this day of ours, whatever day it is.
Great reading. Great reading.
Brilliant.
Wowza.
It's hard to get, there's like something so aggressive about it. Like there's something so, but sort of also, I don't know, like, how do you say put your pants back? Like, is that like, put your pants back on, America? It's like,
Right.
put your pants back on.
Like, keep your pants on, right? And something else mished in there. You know what I mean? Put your pants back
Yeah.
on. It's really,
Yeah,
really
like pull your
important.
pants up.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's like a
Oddly
little touch of
reminds
like
me-
keep your powder dry.
I was gonna say it oddly reminds me of like Walt Whitman or something. Like it's like aggressively like celebratory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's Allen
Yeah.
Ginsberg and Whitman-esque. It's got that like muscular, masculine diction to it.
Yes, for sure.
And the pantslessness.
And the pants.
Yeah, I think it would be sarcastic even if you said it gently. Put your pants back on, America, right? No
Oh,
matter,
that's so gentle. That's so sweet. Say it again.
it's still sarcastic, though.
Right.
Oh, but wait, say it gently. Say it like kindly. Like,
Put your pants back on, America.
oh, I love that.
Compare it to a young
Well,
child.
you
I
can
love
maybe,
that.
Right, Dagne. Or kind of a weird sexual moment, like, oh no,
Or that.
put your pants back.
Yeah.
Right?
Put your pants back on.
it's
The
a
milk
sexual way the
goes
other
down.
way. Like it's over. Like, okay, put your pants back on. I'm done now.
What I was
Oh
in
my
college-
goodness. But you know what?
Episode
All
should
of this-
just be re-saying the first line in as
Right.
many ways as you can think of.
Put your pants back on is the title of this episode.
Put your pants back on.
Done. That's perfect.
But I'm thinking, Jason, did you not just define Pneuma for us? And you said it meant something like the spirit of a soul, the energy of a soul, something along those lines.
What I found was that in Stoicism, it's the vital force of the human. I mean, basically translates to soul, the thing that's you that is more than the body, that animates the flesh. That you're not the flesh, but the flesh is animated by your pneuma.
Right.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's so funny in this poem, sorry to interrupt, is like the piss whisper of a fire, right? That is the soul of the speaker, right? Or at least
Yeah.
that's the lament of the speaker, that the soul has dwindled such that it is a piss whisper, is freaking hysterical. But anyway,
Yeah.
Kathy, you were
I've
saying.
also had this explained to me that, like in Ovid's Metamorphoses and different places, when the soul is like moved from or transformed into different forms, this is the essence that is moved and is unchanged.
Mm.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was gonna like Jason started off our conversation right now by saying, "Oh my gosh, the energy here, the way I had to read that, with such passion and energy, right?" So I think the title is really pretty perfect.
Agreed. And again, like tracking that image of like what needs to be kindled or stoked and it's not catching fire, like it's like a beautiful sequence of images, right? And really just funny the way it cascades.
Have other famous Americans died on the toilet besides from Elvis?
This is a great question.
Or is it just such a pivotal death in like America pop culture history that like it does really evoke something? It felt very true when I read that line.
Yeah.
Like people who died in bathrooms, but not actually on the toilet. Like that I feel like is uniquely
That's-
Elvisian.
That's what I
No,
was
I
thinking.
don't
Like
think so.
Philip
I
Seymour
think
Hoffman.
I think if you're taking a giant dump, right, and you've got a bad ticker, the likelihood is you could stroke out. Here's
No, it
slushy.
I think Marion's right.
That is not medical.
Medically accurate information. Like, are we creating fear?
No, well, listen, I have two things to say. For some reason, I have to defend Elvis. I have heard that isn't true, that it was one of those things that just took off until everybody thought it was truth. But it might be, I don't know. But I do think Marion's right. I do think I have heard that the position isn't great. And if you strain, you can have, and you have a heart problem, you can have a heart problem
Right.
on the toilet. Yeah.
Even if it's not true or not, right? It's the mythology. So it is right.
Sure.
It's poetically true.
Slushies,
So-
consult your
Right.
doctor if we are inserting you right now. Do not be afraid of your own bathroom. But if you feel that you might need to be, then please consult a medical professional.
Don't go to the urban legend.
But no, a lot of those like
But-
death mythologies are wonderful. Like, I mean, a lot of those like death mythologies are, like it just, I mean, Oscar Wilde presumably did not actually say either the wallpaper goes or I do is his last words, but it's a good story.
That is a great story. And I think, I mean, all of this doesn't matter. It's a great line. We all know the occasion, the connotation of die on the shitter like an American, like one of yours.
Yeah.
It works. I
Although
also like I'm sorry. I was just because
No,
it's
go ahead.
above it. The tired potato
Mhm.
got punched in its mute mouth. I see it exactly. Like what an amazing description. But I get an image for sure. My nose looks like a tired potato got punched in its mute mouth.
I
That's
I
all.
have a question
Love that
how
image.
people read this poem. I know it starts as this direct address to America, and I think the first time I read it, I felt like it switched by the end to a more personal address, like one person to another person. But now I'm not sure if it's an address to America all the way through. And part of the question I have about that is the way the pronouns work in this poem. They're very interesting and somewhat withheld. Like I especially noticed that in the stanza about the ER, one gets a pregnancy test when in the ER for their attempt on their own life, what to name that baby. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
I felt there were like three sections. There's like the sort of put your pants back on America, like scene setting that goes to about Clinton, Tennessee. And then that sort of has a sharp break. And then it becomes there's a level of distance. And then Well Tonight brings in like an even further level of distance. So we start
Yeah.
in this like really immediate place of like direct address. And I'm here looking like hell in the bathroom worried about my death. And then it sort of keeps like echoing out into like further and further modes of observation.
So the next section is there are things I've learned already this young soft year. Is that where your third section is, Jason?
Why I could have started the third section at Well Tonight is not the only place I am tonight. Because there is a gap, and then the stanza structure really changes.
Well, where's the second then?
For me, it was Clinton, Tennessee, like sort of just in the
Oh,
middle of that section.
okay.
It just like we're just like right there in this like fight with America and this sort of like obscene, weird, logical, erotic, death inflected, immediacy. And then I felt like Clinton, Tennessee is where it like really sort of leaves that scene and then just sort of like reflects back on something larger.
Yeah.
But-
And the structure changes. I was just going to say, I was going to remind the slushies that you can go to pbqmag.org and look at this poem. So the lines are fairly wide, but the first 2/3 of it are in couplets. And then we get 3-line stanzas and a couple, I think, no, just one single line. Yeah. So the formatting changes about 2/3 of the way through, really.
And I think if we can conceive of the title as some kind of spiritual or creative force that does move, I think that makes sense that the addressee moves too, right? But also stays the same. So I agree with Jason. It's almost, and I'm glad it's not a footnote, but that Clinton is sort of, it's one full sentence in a way, even though it's 3 lines. So like if after and between that, you get this like movement of like kind of how almost America like enters the soul of someone too, and I really like reading it that way.
Oh, Sam, I like that a lot. And I just want to link that back to what Lisa was mentioning too, about like that line about the ER and the pregnancy test, because I am so struck by the last like line and a half, the last sentence of the poem. I worry you'll do it right next time. And I'm still attached to this day of ours, whatever day it is. Like, what's the it in that sentence, right? What is being worried into non-existence there, right? Like that this person's going to kill themselves, right? Like, are you going to do it right and really off yourself? So it feels deeply personal, and also like somebody reading horrific crisis by the context in which it's happening. Like it's just this spiral of America and then the particular of the moment.
And Marion, that in that line, that's the only use of ours in the poem. And,
Oh, wow.
I wanted to say also that Clinton, Tennessee, I was intrigued by it because I thought maybe it was just for the presidential echo. That's why it was used, but it's actually the town where Clinton High School is located, which was the subject of Brown versus Board of Education. So what could be more American than that?
And I felt like that use of ours in the last line that you mentioned, Lisa, to me, that really did bring it back to this being an address to America and the kind of fire that keeps threatening to burn the whole place down.
And I love the exuberance, like the places where it's the most exuberant or like the most exciting. Put your pants back on, America. Well, tonight is not the only place I am tonight. This is so funny. I mean, it's so like tonight is not the only place I am tonight. But then there are other places where it does feel like the further it sort of moves out, the more I kind of feel like I lose some steam. That like, and particularly like the change in form feels like I lose like a little bit of that momentum, and that I sort of want to be. It's like someone is kind of lurching over the bar to like talk to me, and they're telling me something really interesting, but then it sort of like unravels a bit before it sort of gets interesting again.
That's why listening to you read it was so much better.
Yeah.
I felt, because I did struggle with the form of this poem in terms of interacting with it on my own. And when you read it, it all just came to life. And it's, that wonderful energy just came through.
Yeah. Dagne, I second that too. And I think about the comment you made about the fire. And I really, for me, it's the pneuma, that's the soulness at the fire, that's the object of the speaker's preoccupation here. Like the sort of spirit inside the speaker is what's, trying to be kindled, trying to be flamed up again. At least that's how I'm reading it, right? And that really happened when Jason read it, right?
Yeah.
So
yes, exactly.
that was a real magic trick. It felt like the poem really came alive in the reading.
Oh yeah, no, I like that, Marion, and all of the layers in that. And how do we as individuals keep that flame alive in a positive way?
Yeah.
Everything else is so overwhelming, and
I also felt like if I had any kind of complaint about this poem, I wish one vein that I felt was sort of under the surface maybe could be tuned up a little bit, is it does feel like there's like some kind of metabolic condition, right? That's also playing out here, like from kind of the bathroom to the free food to the beans and, the pants in the beginning. And I feel like it's there, but it's not there. And it's easy for me to like read too much into that because almost not enough is there for me to read in. But it does seem like something that is like a big issue in America too.
It's a great point, Sam.
Sorry, winter's here with its expressive eyebrows and doomed neighborhood cats under every car. Yes. Right? Yes. A great description.
I also really like when it comes back to the boxed wine.
Yes.
The last dank well swill of our bank account miraculously transformed into boxed wine. Although I don't get the dank well part. Why well? I would get like the dank swill of our bank account.
I get it. I can answer this.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
But I think that well refers to the well of a bar, the last dank well swill, an adjective, right? So you know how signs say like well drinks $5 during happy hour? It's where the bottles are located. It's the cheap stuff, right?
Well, hey.
I think, and I only know this, and Kathy knows this too, because when I first moved to New York City 20 years ago, I walked around thinking all those signs were for like health drinks. And I'm like,
Thought it was kombucha.
Oh.
so interesting. Like these bars are so like maybe they're serving OJ, like well drinks, right?
So when you played the bar manager in the movie that earned you your IMDb credit, you were not method acting.
My research.
But it's also kind of it does say the miraculous transformation, but it is almost like a Jesus reference too, right? Like the water into wine, but the bank account into boxed wine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa, that goes back to Sam's point too, that if Pneuma is seen as that transformation, like how the language is right there to support it.
Boxed wine is perfect because it's also cheap. Like that means there was only $28 in the bank account. What I was gonna say that I thought was in here a little bit, and I enjoy it, and I don't need more of it, is the play with time being, a construct and not really real. From the beginning with it's 4 a.m. and also 5 and 3 and 2 simultaneously, right? And there's little bits of that throughout. This day. I like that a lot.
Well, when I was reading it, I did kind of feel like there was like two poems. That if you end Pneuma at I'm yawning, breathing just to get oxygen on this fire, it has a kind of like really nice sort of landing. And well, tonight is not the only place I am tonight. It's such like great start. I mean, I did have this sense of sort of like having two pieces. I mean, I know I said 3 earlier, and I meant it, but I do feel like there are sort of like two poems kind of nestled next to each other here that are, sort of being drawn through this thread of the address to America. But I mean, I'll And I do like it best when it's kind of the exuberant speaker, and the further it kind of gets into observational interests, like the more I want to get back to that, like that speaker telling me things that are
Energy.
kind of fun,
Yeah.
and trying to think of like what the word, like just like I'm just so engaged. Like it's just like, who says that? Like I want to know. Like that persona just
kind of-
pulls me in.
Put your pants back on, Schneiderman.
Put your pants back.
I kind of
I look at
appreciated
standing
that.
desk. No one will ever know.
I kind of appreciated the juxtaposition between the kind of voice of authority to this kind of turn towards tenderness, and this caretaking of the patient who's been to the ER. And I think without them right next to each other, one might have seemed too flippant and sarcastic, and the other might have seemed too sentimental. And to have them right next to each other, I don't know, there's an interesting tension there with them both occupying the same poem.
Oh, I like that.
Do we want to vote? Because we have more poems. We have a lot.
I was just gonna say, yeah, we have more
Nice.
words.
The time to
Let's do it. Let's vote. We ready?
thumbs are
1,
out.
2, 3, vote. And she's in.
Right.
Thank you. We're 1 for 1. Thank you, BJ, for Pneuma. We're thrilled to be publishing that. And we're gonna move on to Benish. Marion, I feel it. I feel that you
All
want
right,
me.
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try Benish. And slushies, I'm of an age where I've got those glasses where you could only read through the bottom part of them. So now I have to look up my nose.
I'm definitely taking a picture of that for the
It's such a cute
Insta.
nose.
Like you're gonna be like looking at my brain in a minute. Hold on a minute. All right, so Benish.
You're not close enough.
But slushies.
I've always loved your brain.
Thank
I can't wait
you.
to see it.
Thank you. So these are really interesting 4-line stanzas, right? And it's like 3 long lines and then an indented 4th line that is not quite flush right, but it gives the impression of being like, like sort of a big pause, and then the line starts halfway across.
It sort
the
of looks like an extended Sapphic stanza, and they're not
Yeah.
Saphics, but it has
Yeah.
that same structure in terms of delineation.
Okay, so slushies, if you're listening carefully to the podcast, we call that a PSA, a poetic structure announcement. All right, so Benish, it's been a long night and your mouth already tastes like rain an hour ago. Writing often of the sky instead of tasting it, I look to the sconces and the sconces look fake and their light looks fake, and I have authentic responses to both, which is how storms start. As seasons digest themselves, a short talk on short talks, holiday cards become less applicable and so more affordable, and Fox 8 or whatever news vans circle the weather or imminent sight of tragedy tourism. Some nights I go out and walk the sidewalk in socks or bare feet longer than I'd meant to, and notice the crystal glass and homely bends and feel deeply the Troost neighborhood. My ears circle in on themselves. Stereo sinkholes, by which I mean I'm eavesdropping and I'm sorry. I've had bad teeth forever, and so got online and bought God's vibrator as a toothbrush and sunburned my mirror and stood boldly before the middle-aged self. White as I am, I trust most the islands that kill their first tourists. 3 weeks swim away. A cargo ship full of luxury cars continues to burn in the Atlantic. A mother about a mile from here killed her dog and decapitated her son after calling the cops on the devil. The news, the snows, the Olympics, rubble-crusted outskirts of Kiev, the soft snoring of our toddler. What do? I dither. I stand numb before the light. I look deeply. I look like Fabio if, instead of an angular chin, his face flesh just sort of dangled, and then if also that formless dangle continued on down the rest of the frame. My point is, I have long hair right now, a Hadean earth, a wobbling star, a thought floating in like pickled nimbus, ghost fart. In the mirror, I am an amplified echo of my middle school self, making muscles at himself, waiting for hair to grow, scud missiles arcing across the nightly news downstairs. Tonight, I got news off Facebook, which makes me middle-aged again, and sad. You'd already gone to bed when I found out Robert died. I didn't wake you up. I didn't even check you were asleep. sleep. You needed a night, and this news is not the night you needed. A neighbor is yelling at something, maybe himself, and the still lengthening night repeats. I rarely call in favors, but every time I do, I claim to do it rarely. But still, please sleep. Please go to sleep or keep sleeping. He was 33. It's later still, and your mouth is full of rain. I'll tell you in the morning.
Nice. Great reading.
Holy mackerel. Whole universe.
The tonal shift is really fascinating. Like sort of the tone that's a little bit out of focus in the first one of the kind of observational, like becomes really the focus in this one. And we lose that kind of exuberant voice, but we still have the kind of observational wit.
Honestly, as I was, as I'm speaking slushies, I'm doing this circle thing with my finger, right? Like a little jar or spiral, because it almost feels like a mandala, like the way it loops and loops and loops, right? Like it's doing something really interesting in its spiral.
It also has this turn towards the tender by the end with this kind of care of the sleeping person. And also not quite as much as the first one, but also this sense of being out of time and the night, not the night you needed, and the still lengthening night, and it's later still. You know, it's just this kind of passage of time is fascinating in this poem.
Yeah, I saw those echoes too, Lisa. I really, really agree with that. It was so interesting to see that kind of transfer across here. The details are very different, but something about it brought that kind of there's an emotional weight to it that it brought through, that it echoes really nicely.
And I love my ears circle in on themselves stereo sinkholes. I've seen quite a few poems where they kind of dramatize the feeling of now with the information overload, you know, almost like list poems on crack. But I feel like this kind of preceding that, or you know, whatnot, really puts it into an image that I won't forget for a long time. I think it's great.
I mean, I thought it did a really beautiful job of kind of what it feels like to have the world invading through screens, and just knowing too much, like kind of knowing, like just being so aware of tragedy that it's endlessly interrupting your own life. I didn't love the stanza about the face flesh. Like that felt like the only false note to me. Like I love when it gets back to like I have an amplified echo in middle school self making muscles at himself. Like that I thought was beautiful. And then I guess I'm the right age to also remember Scud missiles on television in middle school. But yeah, but everything else, the way that it circles where one actually is, but the information that one is receiving and how that inflects the self, that the lived self is no longer living in the space, but is also living in the space. I thought it was really beautiful.
I did think it was very natural to go from all of those external references, though, to then looking at oneself in the mirror and, you know, wherever that's going to take you, depending on what you see and how you feel about what you see. But I thought that kind of coming back to the self felt right.
I agree, Dagne, that the one line of, you know, is after all this bad news coming in, the mother killing her son and the bombing of Kyiv and the snoring, what do we do? I dither, right? Like, what else are you going to do? You can't fix any of this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that just felt very honest and also kind of powerless. Like we're all powerless in this instance.
So relatable.
The Scud missile line, right? Like what's fabulous about this is how precise the line is. It's Scud missiles arcing across the nightly news downstairs, right? So it's not even a sense of the reality of the catastrophe of war. It's you're watching them arc across the screen, and then that ties into what I think Jason was saying too about the sort of inundation of news, and as Samantha pointed out, it's like a language for the sensory overload, right? And the precision of that is like you're looking at a screen, you're watching the missile on the screen, not the reality.
Makes it seem performative too.
And a few stanzas up where you get the rubble crusted outskirts of Kyiv, it's like it speaks so much to that the now is the amplified echo of that self, you know. I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's something really beautiful about the ending with not telling the partner of the death, of like letting the partner sleep and delaying the information that it won't help to know now, and the kind of like constant but then he's also stuck with the immediacy, right? Like he also carries the knowledge till morning. I just thought that was a really beautiful ending that feels very like it's something that I feel like happens a lot and I don't see represented very often.
And is that what they're calling a favor in that last line, in that last stanza? Because I really appreciate that too. I rarely call in favors, but every time I do, I claim to do it rarely, but still, please sleep. Is the favor that, right? I won't have to tell you if you don't wake up. So that's the favor too, right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And I, not for nothing, but you guys all know that maybe Jesus was crucified when he was 33.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. that
Maybe.
It's interesting that what's happened too is like that it's hard to do that for yourself, right? To give yourself that favor of not knowing the news. I'm sure we've all spent time with people who have their Apple Watch with their notifications going. You're like, do yourself a favor, take that watch off,
Walk away.
Yeah. Like up further in the poem, they're like taking your shoes and socks off and walking around the neighborhood to feel deeply the Troost neighborhood, right? There's something about like this person does want to be saturated with a sensorium, like he wants his feet in the snow, right? Or they want their that experience. And I have to say, my accent, my like sort of North Jersey regional South Jersey accent, I have trouble with the stanza, with the line about the toothbrush, right? So I got online and I bought God's vibrator as a toothbrush and sunburned my mirror and stood boldly before the middle-aged self. Great line, right? And then, white as I am, I trust most the islands that kill their first tourists. I actually have trouble saying it. I don't know if it's I trust most, like they're the ones I trust the most, right? Or
Yeah.
I trust most of the islands. You know what I mean? Like there's an implied of, like, I trust most of them, or I trust most. Like, so I don't know how to read that. So how do you read that?
I
Why
read it
doesn't
the second way. I trust the islands that kill their tourists.
Right.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
And the most is actually accentuating the trust. I trust most, right? Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I mean, in the same way that I thought the squirrels in the last poem was like a reference to like the clickbait that was going around that squirrels don't remember where they hide their nuts. Like squirrels have really bad memories. They hide all these nuts in part because they forget where
They
they are.
have a map of trees.
They lose their map. Yeah. But this was I'd assume this was also it was in the news probably a couple years ago that there are a number of islands that have had no contact with the outside world. And this Mormon missionary got himself to one of them in an attempt to convert the indigenous people and was killed. And everyone's sort of like, yeah, don't and so I assumed that was kind of like the reference there, that there is a place that is not in contact, that does not, find out everything on their phones and does not know what anyone else is doing. And if you try to bring the information, they kill you. And maybe that's great. Maybe that's actually the way to go. Total news blackout.
Right.
Yeah.
Just take socks off and stick your feet in a damp morning dew of a Troost neighborhood lawn that's not yours.
So the other interesting thing in this poem is I didn't know what the Troost neighborhood is, and apparently it's in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And that street is the dividing line between, like in the Jim Crow times, between the black and white neighborhoods. So I also found that kind of interesting because that could be, even if you're, you've taken your headphones off and you've got your shoes and socks off and you're trying to be in the moment, then you also have these echoes of history that are infiltrating your thoughts. It's like there's always some bad news somewhere waiting to invade.
And I think too, with the weight of history, there's also the sense of, am I feeling it enough? Am I recognizing it enough? I mean, I know I feel that way in places that are freighted with history. You think, how can I acknowledge this properly?
Yeah.
Speaking about the news, I mean, the cargo ship line after the islands line makes a little contextual sense. But then we have the mother who killed her dog and decapitated her son. And then we get the news, the snows, the Olympics. When I read the mother is a random bit of news, right? What is the mother? I don't quite understand. I mean, even the 3 week swim away, a cargo ship full of luxury cars continues to burn in the Atlantic. It's all news snippets, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, for me, at least, it was about the unassimilatability of certain stories into one's own perspective. That, we all know that there are people that this woman decapitated her child and called the cops and killed her dog. Like we know these things happen, but it's almost impossible to integrate into your understanding of the world. Like when I'm talking to students or when I'm, riding the subway, like it's like I know these things happen, but and then it echoes out. Like what am I supposed to do with the knowledge of burning freighter in the Atlantic? Like that to some extent, like these things are sort of impossible to assimilate into our day-to-day lives, even though, we feel an obligation to be aware of them, to kind of know that they happen. And yet we tend to live our lives as though they don't, because if we did live our lives as though everyone we met might be, ready to decapitate their child, like
Right.
To-
we couldn't
to
get through the
me,
day.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of that, Jason. And to me, just thinking personally, Kathy, like I live in a small town. Murder does not normally happen here. But a number of years back, a local man was murdered by his son-in-law, and the son-in-law also nearly killed the daughter who he'd come to kill, his wife. To me, it was like the bruise of knowing about something like that that's maybe a little bit closer to your world because it's in your community, and then you flip on the news and there's all this other stuff as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
personally, I read it in that way.
Well, it was me when you, Dagne, made that reference about history and being in historic places and saying, how can I acknowledge this space? I think that same thing happens with news too, right? Like how you go,
Yeah,
wow, that's terrible. Geez. And then you order your bagel.
exactly.
We're just inundated with
Yeah,
tragedy
yeah. We end up feeling horribly superficial all the time because of it, like
Mhm.
and uncaring.
But that's why I sort of love the gesture of the ending, which is to hold a container around this beloved. Just keep sleeping before you have to wake up and know more terrible. This specific terrible
Yeah.
that the speaker, inundated by news of the terrible, can decide, right? Protect the sleeper from. And that feels like it feels like a kind of agency as opposed to being inundated,
Yeah, and that's true. And that makes me think of what Sam said earlier too about, do yourself a favor and take your Apple Watch off and throw it in the trash.
right.
But,
Right.
but that's like our first impulse is, oh, did you hear about this awful thing that happened? Did you hear about this mother and what she did to her kid? No one needs that in their head, but that's like our first human impulse is to share the awful, right?
Yeah.
So I
Right.
think that restraint
Yeah.
at the end rings even more touchingly, to have it withheld.
I
I'm
was gonna
sorry,
say,
go ahead, Sam.
we're almost lost in this like double bind too, because when people share too much good news about their lives, that's also off-putting, right?
Oh, God. Yeah. There's no solution, Sam.
Yeah.
Well, to think of a new word rather than trauma dump,
Yeah.
joy puke or something.
Or a thought floating in like pickled nimbus, ghost fart.
Yeah.
You go,
Oh, Marion, I knew you loved Ghost Fart, even when you read it the first time. And I'm saying Ghost Fart. It.
ghost fart.
Which
great.
was better, God's Vibrator or Ghost Fart?
I think ghost fart. I don't know. It took me a minute. Like on the God's vibrator, I was like, God, what is happening? And then if you think about an electric toothbrush, you're like, oh,
But why is it God's vibrator?
I'm not really sure.
I mean, it's a vibrator, but like
Right.
God's vibrator?
God's vibrator. Maybe because it's, I don't know, it's in your mouth. I don't know.
It's like transubstantiation, like instead of the
Exactly.
vapor.
It's a little body in the blood or
It's
This was
the
on
Pneuma.
YouTube. We should have had cameras rolling for that. I'm not describing what you
That's
did.
a
You
great
want to describe what you
picture.
did? I'm not going to.
we have the sound effect.
I think our listeners
I
can
think-
picture it pretty well.
I think we have a choice to make. I think we
Yeah.
can talk about this poem for the next 3 hours.
Right.
So who's in? Who's in on
All right,
that?
we should just have 4-hour episodes of Slush Pile.
Great.
Where
Director's cut.
We don't have any work to do. It's Friday. Or we could vote and move on with our lives.
let's move on with our lives. Let's do it.
Do it.
All right, let's
Yeah.
do it. Okay.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Vote. And it's in. Woohoo!
Woo! Yay!
BJ Soloy, we love your work. Thank you,
Oh,
thank you,
yeah.
thank you. These are going to be some
Yay,
tasty
BJ.
pages. Yeah.
Lots of-
So I guess that's it.
All right.
Right. And I'm thrilled. Thank you again for everybody for being here, and especially to BJ to allowing us to discuss their work. And thank you. We are honored as always. Slushies, let us know how we're doing and keep reading. Woohoo!
Bye.